The social media business is evolving a lot these days. There could be big challenges ahead for two of its major players, Twitter and Facebook. Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter is nearing completion, but according to the Wall Street Journal, some advertisers are not happy. Reportedly, they fear that hate speech could flourish if Mr. Musk softens the content moderation policies. Meanwhile, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram has its own challenges. Today, it reported quarterly earnings. Meta is still making billions in profits, but it fell far short of expectations. Its stock lost about a quarter of its price today. But a lot of people scroll through social feeds on iPhones. And today, Apple announced weaker than expected earnings and revenue. iPhones are blocking more ad tracking these days, which affects revenues for ad-supported services, including social media. On top of that, this week, Apple announced it will expand advertising on its app stores. Joining us now is Patience Hagan, a reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Ms. Hagan, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Let me focus just on the advertising piece of all of this, particularly with Twitter. What have you been hearing lately from advertisers about their future with the social network after Elon Musk acquires it?
Advertisers are very concerned that Elon Musk is going to essentially stop moderating the content and allow in content that they're not comfortable having their ads next to. Elon Musk has said that he's a free speech absolutist, and he said that he wouldn't ban as much content, he wouldn't ban as many users as Twitter's been doing over the past few years. Advertisers, they don't like this because they really don't want their ads next to content that's too divisive, such as violent content, pornographic content, or even just really divisive political content. A number of advertisers have actually drawn a line in the sand when it comes to former President Donald Trump. Elon Musk has said that he's willing to reinstate Donald Trump's account. Twitter banned Donald Trump back in January 2021. And about a dozen advertisers have told their ad agency, if Trump comes back on, pause my ads on Twitter immediately. It's still not clear whether that will happen, especially because Trump has said he doesn't want to return to Twitter if he's invited. But that's been one of the things that's kind of made advertisers most nervous. It's this issue of content moderation and banned accounts.
We should note that Elon Musk posted a statement on Twitter today. It reads in part, quote, "The reason I acquired Twitter is because it is important to the future of civilization to have a common digital town square where a wide range of beliefs can be debated in a healthy manner without resorting to violence," unquote. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what advertisers do want from social media in general in the future? I understand what he's saying about freedom of speech. We all have freedom of speech. We don't have freedom of reach. I'm not entitled to talk to whoever I want to talk to, but I'm entitled to talk. What kinds of voices do advertisers want to be aligned with on social media? Are they concerned that they won't be able to find what they want at all from Twitter?
Excellent question. And that is probably the heart of the matter, because if you look at what Elon wrote, he kind of suggests that he's going to give them options to choose their own experiences, to have a lot of control over what content they're next to. That's the kind of controls that advertisers really like. They like to have that on platforms with a lot of user-generated content like Twitter and Facebook. He's suggesting that he's going to preserve those controls and maybe even strengthen them. He really struck a much more conciliatory tone with advertisers today.
Let me ask you about, oh goodness, I'm sorry, I didn't read the rest of his quote. Forgive me. He also wrote, and I just want to finish our excerpt, he also wrote, quote, "Twitter obviously cannot become a free-for-all hellscape where anything can be said with no consequences," unquote. Sorry about that. I didn't finish reading that particular excerpt. Let me shift gears from Twitter over to Meta. They have also kind of come after Apple for the way that it has been dealing with ads and ad blocking. Meta gave a statement to Insider that reads, I'm going to try to read the whole thing this time. The statement reads, quote, "Apple previously said it didn't take a share of developer advertising revenue and now apparently changed its mind. We remain committed to offering small businesses simple ways to run ads and grow their businesses on our apps," unquote. Talk about the situation with Meta. It seems like they've got sort of two overlapping issues. One, with the increased prevalence of ad blocking options that are kind of opt out versus opt in. And then Meta's own pre-existing issues about dealing with all kinds of problematic content within its social network.
Absolutely. And Meta is absolutely grappling with both. Their stock has plunged this year, and it's because they're dealing with kind of a vortex of challenging business conditions. On the one hand, there's new new ways to opt out of tracking, like the one that Apple created last year that's been hitting them very hard. They're also dealing with really tough competition from their rival TikTok, where users are spending more and more time. They're continuing to deal with the same content moderation issues as Twitter. They're constantly evolving their policies there, and they're constantly getting blamed for like thing after thing that's posted on their platform. That particular statement about Apple is about a new rule that Apple created on Monday, which some are saying is a shot across the bow, trying to weaken Facebook, even when they're already struggling because of things Apple did last year. Under the new rule created this week, Apple requires that if you're paying to boost a social media post, that payment has to be treated as an in-app purchase. And that means Apple will take a 30% cut of those boost payments. In the past, they've been treated as advertising payments, which were allowed to transact separately, where Apple didn't get a cut. By doing this, they're trying to take that 30% cut of another stream of Facebook's revenue.
Patience Hagen of the Wall Street Journal, so much to watch with the future of social media. Appreciate you coming to talk it through with us tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.